Hello, welcome to IVORY GATE e-learning series, an academic empowerment program developed by IVORY GATE Education Center, ABUJA. Our subject is mathematics, and we'll be discussing quadratic equation. My name is Chukudi Ani. In this presentation, we will be able to show you the standard form of a quadratic equation and give some examples of them. Then we'll show you the different ways of solving quadratic equation. Then we'll now delve in solution of few examples using factorization method. At the end of this program, you will be able to learn how to solve quadratic equations using factorization method. So, without taking much of your time, let us go into this interesting topic. Okay, a quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a, b, and c are constants. Okay, and a is not equal to 0. Okay, look at this very well. We have ax squared. Here, a is the coefficient of x squared. Then for bx, b, which is also a constant, is the coefficient of b, and c is just a constant. Okay. Remember, the condition for quadratic equation is that a will not be equal to 0. So the rest can actually be 0, but a cannot be equal to 0. The reason being that if a is 0, then we are left with bx plus c is equal to 0. Then it ceases to be a quadratic equation. It now becomes a linear equation. Please remember this. Good. Now let us take some examples of quadratic equations. Okay. We have 1, x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Is this a quadratic equation? Yes. Why? Because here we have value for x squared. Here we have value for x and the constant, all set to 0. Okay, comparing this with the standard form that we have here, the coefficient of x squared here is what? 1. While the coefficient here is what? A. The coefficient here is 5. Coefficient of x rather. While the coefficient of x here is b. Then the constant is 6. Here is the constant c. So you can see it is of this form: ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Here in this case, we now have x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. And what are the constants here? 1, 5, and 6 are the constants. Beautiful. Okay, let's go to example number 2. We have 2x squared plus 3x, wow, equal to 2. What's happening here? This is not of this form. Ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Is this a problem? No. We only need to rearrange this to get a standard quadratic equation. So it just simply becomes 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. I hope you are familiar with this operation. We simply had to subtract 2 from both sides, and the 2 now reflects on the left hand side. Okay, with this, does it look familiar now, like the standard quadratic equation? Yes. And what are the constants? The coefficient of x squared is 2, the coefficient of x is 3, and the constant is what? Minus 2. Aha! Why minus 2 and not 2? Because whenever we are talking about the constants, we take into cognizance the sign before it. Beautiful. Okay, we now move to the third example. The coefficient of x squared here is 3, the coefficient of x is -2, and the constant is -1, all set to 0. So it's the same thing as the same form as we have up there. So these are examples of a quadratic equation. Okay, before we leave here, I will need to let you know that it mustn't be that, because another example could be, maybe say 4 here, we can have x squared plus 4x is equal to 0. Is this a quadratic equation? Yes. The only thing here is that while we have value for x squared, the coefficient is 1, you know. Then we have 4x, the coefficient is 4. We don't have value for the constant, for the c, the constant. But we can still solve for x. So this is a quadratic equation as well. Okay, then another form I need to quickly add here is that we can have 3x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. Is this a quadratic equation? Yes. We have value for 3x squared, then the constant for the coefficient of x. What it means here is that the coefficient of x is 0, therefore taking away the value for x, but we have the constant. Then does this qualify for a quadratic equation? Yes. The only way it does not qualify for quadratic equation is when we have the coefficient of x squared set to 0. This is very important. Then the values of x that satisfy the quadratic equation are called the roots of the equation. Beautiful. Now, quadratic equations can be solved using these 4 methods. 1, factorization method, which is what we'll treat this morning. 2, completing the square method. 3, the formula method. Then 4, the graphical method. In the process of solving this, you will notice that there is a correlation between completing the square method and formula method, in the sense that we derive the formula for the formula method using the completing the square method. Okay, these are pretty interesting topics, and they are very important exam topics. So the examining bodies, NECO, WAEC, and JAMB expect students to master the different methods. Okay, then given this quadratic equation, always write the number of the equation solution. X squared plus 4x is equal to 0. Yes, we can factorize this. It's pretty straightforward. What is common? Here x is common between x squared and 4x. So we take away x. Then what's the next thing to do? You go to the rough work column. Always have this by your side. And said, I've taken away x, but I have x squared divided by the x that I said is common. Remember that x squared means x times x, then divided by what? X. So x will go for x, leaving what? X in bracket. So you come here and say x plus, you take the 4x divided by what? X. 4x is 4 times x divided by x. Then x can go for x, leaving what? 4. So we have here 4. Then is equal to 0. Then for factorization, we have that this relation, if A times B is equal to 0. Therefore, A is equal to 0 or B is equal to 0. So if we apply this relation, if we apply this relation to what we are doing, you will now be able to see, you will now see that x squared plus 4 therefore x is equal to 0 or x is equal to plus 4, that is the number in the brackets, which is now x plus 4, will be equal to 0. So in this case, we now subtract 4 from both sides. X plus 4 minus 4 is equal to 0 minus 4. Then by the time we get this, we have x, then plus 4 minus 4 will be set to 0, is equal to minus 4. Therefore, the roots of the equation s is equal to what? 0 or minus 4. Okay, I hope this is clear. Then we go to the next one. Here we have x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Now this is where the real job comes, and just pay attention and get this concept. I'm sure you will find it very useful. First, we go into what we call the product and sum analysis. The essence of this is to determine in the first place whether the equation can be factorized. This is not all that straightforward like the first one we treated, which doesn't have the constant, but it's equally easy. Now, for you to get the product, what you do is you take the product of the constant and the value of ax squared. So in this case, the constant, the coefficient of x squared is 1, so x squared times 6 will give us 6x squared. Then you take the middle term here and put it at the sum, plus 5. Always go with the sign so that you don't make mistakes. Okay, now the main thing to ask here is, what are the two things that we multiply themselves to give us 6, but if we add them we get 5? So we just need to look for factors of 6. So we say 6 is equal to 1 times 6. Okay, that is 6. This is fine. But if we say for the sum, 1 plus 6, is 7 and not 5. So for us, this is not okay. Then we look for another factor of 6. 6 can equally be 2 times 3. Then what of this sum? 2 plus 3 is 5. Can you see it? So this is what we are looking for. So instead of writing 5, we write this. Once we do that, we will be able to factorize. So that means 6x squared is 2x plus 3x. Then this is times, this is multiplication, then this one is 2x plus 3x. Okay, so we now go back to the equation. Wherever you see this, you put this. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so we bring down x squared plus, instead of writing 5x, we now write what? We write this. That's just the key. 2x plus 3x plus what? 6 is equal to 0. Okay, so here x is common. We say x. Then I will always like you to do this until you master that. So take the numerator x squared divided by that one you said is common. This will go for this, leaving what? X. You bring x here. Plus. Then for the next one, we say 2x divided by x. So leaving what? 2. Then plus. What is common between 3 and 6? 3 is common. Then 3x divided by 3. We have x plus 6 divided by 3. We have 2, all equal to 0. Okay, so if actually we do this analysis and we get the correct factors, then we expect to get the same things in the bracket. At this point, when you don't get the same things in the bracket, then go back and revisit your solution. Okay, so here we have x plus 2 and x plus 2. So x plus 2 is common. We single it out and do the same thing again. Where do we go? Let's do it somewhere here. We can still see that. We now say x into x plus 2 divided by x plus 2. Then x plus 2, we cancel x plus 2, leaving what? X. Plus, we have the next one, 3 into x plus 2, all divided by that x plus 2 we have identified to be common. This will go for this, leaving behind what? 3. So, having got the same things in the bracket, but remember our relation that going back one step, remember that where we have, if we have a times b is equal to 0, therefore a is equal to 0 or b is equal to 0. Okay, so with that we keep on moving. So if we apply the same relation here, what do we get? Therefore x plus 2 is equal to 0. In that case, x is equal to minus 2. Or the second part, x plus 3 is equal to 0. In this case, x is equal to minus 3. Therefore, the values of x that satisfy the quadratic equation is minus 2 or minus 3. And this is your answer. Yeah, the next example is 2x squared plus 3x is equal to 2. So we can make this to be in form of standard quadratic equation by doing 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so this is now in form of a standard quadratic equation where 2 is the coefficient of x squared, 3 is the coefficient of x, and 2 is the constant, all set to 0. Okay, with this done, we move over to our analysis part to find out whether it can be factorized in the first place. Okay, so for us to do that, we'll now take the product of this and this. So that is 2x squared times minus 2. We have minus 4x squared. Then the sum is the middle term, the value of the coefficient of x, which is plus 3x. Okay, now the next thing to do is to check the factors of 4 such that when we multiply them we get minus 4, and if we add we get plus 3. Okay, so we single out 4 and say 4 is 1 times 4. Aha. Okay, so 1 times 4 is 4. Okay, but this one is not 4, it is minus 4. So that means we need to one of them needs to be minus. So assuming we now start with 4, we say 1 times in brackets minus 4 is what? Minus 4. Okay, then if we say 1 plus in brackets minus 4 is equal to 1 minus 4, which is minus 3. Are we looking for minus 3? No, so this is not okay for us. So in that case, the next option to look at is something like minus 1 times minus 4, sorry, minus 1 times 4 is minus 4, then minus 1 plus 3 plus 4 rather is equal to plus 3. That's what we are looking for. So in place of this, we now come over here and say to be minus x plus 4x. It's still the same. Okay, then for the product we have minus x times 4x. So for our check, minus x times 4x will give us minus 4x squared. Then for the sum, minus x plus 4x is the same thing as 4x minus x. That's what we wanted to write initially, but we don't want you to lose track of the way we got it. Okay, is equal to 3x. So we now come in here and continue. 2x squared in place of 3x we have minus x plus 4x, then minus 2 is 0. Then we have x in brackets. What remains here? Remember how we do get it? We come and say 2x squared divided by what we've identified as the LCM. X, we go for x. X will be here, so we have 2x minus, so we have minus x divided by x. This will go, we have minus 1. Bracket closes. Then what next? We have plus. What is common between 4x and 2? 2 is common. What is remaining? How do we get that? We come back to this place and say 4x divided by 2. This will go for this, and we have 2. We have 2x minus, we have minus 2 over 2. This will go for this, and we have minus 1 is equal to 0. Okay, so remember, whenever we do this analysis correctly, we'll get the same things in the bracket. So at this point, we have the same things in the bracket. If you fail to have the same things in the bracket, what this simply requires is that you go back a bit and look at your signs, look at your factors until you arrive at the same things in the bracket. With this, we have what is common, 2x minus 1. 2x minus 1 is common, and what is remaining we put in bracket. What is here? X plus what is here? 2 is equal to 0. If A times B is equal to 0, therefore A is equal to 0 or B is equal to 0. Therefore, 2x minus 1 is equal to 0, or x plus 2 is 0. So in this case, we have 2x is equal to 1 and x is equal to what? 1 over 2, or x is equal to minus 2. Therefore, the values of x that satisfy this equation is x is equal to half, 1 over 2, or minus 2. That is the answer. Okay, this is interesting. Now we move over to the next example. Now we have solve x squared minus 4. So we have x squared is equal to 4. So this gives us x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. So this is in form of standard quadratic equation, where we have x squared plus or minus 0x minus 4 is equal to 0. So here what it simply means is the coefficient of x is 1, the coefficient of x squared is 1, the coefficient of x is 0. That's why the whole of this is missing, and then we have 4. Is this a quadratic equation? Yes, it is. When you have something like this, the first thing you should look at is, can I get both of them to be in the form a squared minus b squared? This is called difference of two squares. Difference of two squares. Okay. Yes. Can we get it to be in that form? Yes. Then how do we go about it? Let's do that immediately. X squared minus, we can get this to be 2 raised to power 2 is equal to 0. Whenever we have this, for a squared minus b squared, difference of two squares says that it is a squared minus b squared is equal to a plus b and a minus b. Just give me benefit of doubt and accept this for now. Then when we come to logarithm, we'll prove that. Okay. Then here we will now have x plus 2, x minus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so let's now look at this. So with this now, we have that factorized form on the left hand side. Therefore, this can still represent a and b. Therefore, we have x plus 2 is 0, or x minus 2 is 0. So when this happens, x is equal to minus 2. Then if this is the case, x is equal to 2. Therefore, the values of x that satisfy this quadratic equation is minus 2 or 2. So if you plug any of them into this equation, you will always get 4. A typical example is when if it's minus 2 and you put minus 2 squared. Okay, let's do that. Check. From minus 2 squared is minus 2 times minus 2. Minus times minus is plus. 2 times 2 is 4. So this is positive plus 4. Then the other way around, we have 2 raised to power 2 is 2 times 2, which is what? 4. So this is correct. So with this, you've seen the different ways of solving quadratic equation. Okay. Now before we round up, need to show you, walk you through what we have done. Okay, so quickly we started this series with the showing the form of a quadratic equation, where we say that it's of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a, b, and c are constants and a is not equal to 0. We gave examples of quadratic equations. Example, x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Here the coefficient of x squared is 1 and the coefficient of x here is 5. The constant is 6. Then we have a quadratic equation of this form, 2x squared plus 3x is equal to 2. So it's still the same thing, except that we still we need to bring 2 over to the left hand side. So how do we do that? We need to subtract 2 from both sides so that we have 0 here and the 2 will reflect at the other side as minus 2. So giving us 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 is 0. Okay, then we equally have the third one, 3x squared minus 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. The coefficient of x squared is 3, the coefficient of x is minus 2, the constant is minus 1. It's the same thing as the form. But it takes a different dimension when we have something like x squared plus 4x is equal to 0. Here what is missing? The constant is missing. So probably that means the constant here is 0. So we'll now factorize and bring out the x that is common. That one is pretty straightforward. Then for something like this as well, we have, in a situation where we have 3x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. What is missing? We don't have any value for x. So that means the coefficient of x is 0. Then this is equally a quadratic equation. It ceases to be a quadratic equation when the coefficient of a is 0, when we don't have anything raised to like x squared, for instance. So the values of x that satisfy the quadratic equation are called the roots of the equation. Okay, we told you that quadratic equations can be solved using factorization method, completing the square method, the formula method, and graphical method. And we told you equally that NECO, WAEC, and JAMB expect students to master the different methods. Okay, then walking you through the first solution, where we have the constant as 0. So what is common here? When you have this, x is common, you have x into x plus 4 is 0. Then we apply one important concept, and whenever you are using factorization method, always have this in mind. If you have a times b to be 0, it means that a is 0. In that case, it will be 0 times b. 0 times b will be 0. Or at any point in time, b is 0. In that case, it will be a times 0, which is what? 0. That is the concept, the basis for solving factorization method. Okay, having done that, therefore, the two parts are x and what? X plus 4. So we have x, therefore x is equal to 0, or x plus 4 is equal to 0. Then subtracting 4 from both sides to make x to be the subject. So we now have x plus 4, which is what we have here. Then minus 4 we have introduced, then minus 4. Whatever we do on the left hand side, we do the same on the right hand side, giving us x is equal to minus 4. Therefore the values of x that satisfies this quadratic equation is 0 and minus 4, and that's what we've got here. Okay, we go to the next one. Okay, For this type of quadratic equation, x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0, we said the first thing to do is to find out whether it can be factorized in the first place. So how do you do that? You take whatever value you have here and multiply it with the constant. So here we have x squared times 6, and it gives us 6x squared. Then you take the middle one here and put it as the sum. Okay, so here what are we simply doing? We are looking for the factors of 6 such that when we add it we get plus 5. Simple. So 1 times 6 is factor of 6, then 1 plus 6 is 7. Are we okay with that? No. So we won't go with this. Then and the next one, factor of 6 is 2 times 3 is 6. We are fine. Then the sum 2 plus 3 is 5. Good. This is what we are looking for. So instead of writing 5x, we now break it up into 2x plus 3x. Then this now becomes 2x times 3x. Then quickly we need to check. 2 times 3 is 6. Then x times x is x squared. So this is fine. Then 2x plus 5x. 2 oranges plus 3 oranges gives us what? 5 oranges. So this is equally correct. Okay, so in solving this, what we simply do is, instead of writing 5x, we look for the value, the expansion of that, and bring it here. This one is the same. This one is the same. The only thing that changed is this. Okay, so we now factorize, get something of this form, factorize form. Therefore, this side is either this side is 0 or this side is 0. So we simplify, get x minus 2. We simplify x minus 3. And that's the answer. Okay, that's interesting. Now we go to the next one, which is 2x squared plus 3x is equal to 2. To make it to be in form of standard quadratic equation, we make that 2 to come over to this side, and it becomes 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. Some say, okay, so you remember whenever a sign is crossing over sign of equality, the sign will change. Like here is plus, so crossing over it will become minus. Basically, from first principle, what we are doing is, like here it's plus 2, so to eliminate 2 from this side, we now have to subtract the exact value from both sides. So plus 2 minus 2 is 0. Then we equally have to introduce that minus 2 here for it to reflect here, because of this sign of equality. Whatever we do on the left hand side, we do on the right hand side for it still to be equal. Okay, then we now take the analysis. We take a product of this and this. Then what do we get? Minus 4x squared. Pay attention to the sign here because it will play a very key role. Okay, then and the sum is the middle one here, which is 3x. Then for 3x now, we now look for factors of minus 4 such that when we add, we get what? 3. Okay, so starting with factors of 4. 4 is 1 times 4 is 4. Okay, so assuming we now, that means for us to get minus, that means only one of them has negative sign. So it's either 1 or 4. If it is 1, we now have 1 minus 4, which is minus 3. Is that what we are looking for? No. Then now the next option is when 1 is the one that is negative. So we now say minus 1 plus 4. So in that case, you now use the bigger number to subtract the smaller number and put the sign of the bigger number. So in this case, it will become 4 minus 1, and it is 3 plus 3. Is that what we are looking for? Yes. So we now plug it in here. Okay, so in place of 3x, we can now write minus x plus what? 4x here. Okay, so here the same thing, we bring down this, then expand this, minus x plus 4x. Remember, that's the only thing you are changing here. Then you bring down the other one is equal to 0. Okay, so continuing, we factorize, get the two brackets, then set this one to be equal to 0 or this one to be equal to 0. Then we now get x is equal to 1 over 2 or x is equal to minus 2. Beautiful. Then finally, we equally discussed how to solve an equation of the form x squared is equal to 4. Okay, then bringing 4 to the other side of the equation, we have x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. Is this some standard quadratic equation in that form? Yes. Remember, we said that the only time it's not a standard quadratic equation is when the value of a coefficient of x squared is set to 0. So it doesn't matter whether b is 0 or c is 0, as we have seen in the other cases. So here we are introducing another important concept, which is called difference of two squares, which says that if a squared minus for a squared minus b squared, that it is the same thing as a plus b or a minus b. Okay, so if we take the factors of this and multiply this, okay, let's just for a check, let's do that. For us to work on this, it is a into this one, a minus b, plus b, this one into this again, a minus b. Let us find out if we can get something like this. Then this is a squared, a times a is a squared, minus ab, plus b times a is ab. You may be tempted to write in ba, they are the same thing, but if you write ab, it makes you to realize that they are the same form. Then plus b minus b is equal to minus b squared. Then this gives us a squared minus ab plus ab, we cancel each other and give us 0, minus b squared. Therefore, we have a squared minus what? B squared. And this is the same thing as what we have here. This is called difference of two squares. Okay, so with that in mind, what we need to do is to raise this to power 2. X squared minus 4 is equal to 0, yes. Can we make it to be of this in this form? Yes. We have x squared minus 2 squared, because 4 can be raised to power 2, is equal to 0. Okay, then when we have this, we can now apply difference of 2 squared. Therefore, x plus 2 times x minus 2 is equal to 0. Then taking this, we now solve for x, or taking that, we solve for x. Therefore, x is equal to plus or minus 2. We've equally done the check here, and we notice that we observe that that's the answer. So now, do well to pause the video and take the assignment. So the first one is x squared plus 5x is equal to 0. 2, x squared is equal to 5x. 3, x squared plus 7x is equal to minus 10. 4, 3x squared minus 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. You may wish to share your solutions with us through our WhatsApp number 0705 294 6665 or our Facebook page, IVORY GATE Education Center, Abuja, Nigeria. At the end of with this, I'm sure that we have learned a lot of things concerning solution of quadratic equations using factorization method. I hope this video has been useful to you. Thank you for watching. For more information on IVORY GATE, JAMB, SSE, Common Entrance tutorials, call us today on these numbers. Visit our website at www.ivorygateonline.com or our Facebook page. Thank you for watching.